Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagahas. See that, guys, right there? You see the coffee? Coffee's in hand. Uh-oh. You know what that means. Swagahas gonna go on a little rambly rant video here today because it's been a little while since we've had a kind of market shoot from the hip video, and we got a lot to talk about. Check the pulse. How we doing? Is the comic book market dead? Are we still alive? Yeah, I think we're still alive. Things are still okay. In this video, we need to talk about something. We need to talk about how the easy money has been made. The jig is up. The game is over. No longer are we in a place where things are going to 3x overnight. No longer are we going to be able to see the movie that is coming out a couple months down the line, pick up those key books related to that movie that's coming out a couple months down the line, and then just as the trailer drops right before the show comes out or whatever the case is, we put that stuff on eBay and we flip our way to the promised land. The game doesn't work like that anymore. So in this video, we need to talk about how now the grind begins. You know, the real grind begins because a lot of stuff going on in the global economic world we're in. Things are crashing one day. Things are pumping the next day. Stocks are up and down, dead cap bouncing, gas prices up, gas prices go down, elect this official, elect that official. They're going to save us from this crazy economy. The reality is, nobody really knows what is happening. So in this video, we're going to talk about the comic book market, the state of things, what's kind of going on, take a look at some of the interesting things going out there, see how no book is safe out there in the market, even the ones you think would be the most safe. We're going to talk about some of those sales and then kind of wrap it up with, this discussion of, this is it. The grind has begun, and we really have to now kind of look deep into our eyes, look deep into our souls, look deep into the mirror and ask ourselves the question, do we believe in the comic books that we're buying? But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, how do we start our conversation? Again, this is going to be a little more of a kind of market rambling, shoot from the hip type of video. You know how we like to do with these types of videos from time to time and try to connect a bunch of different dots that are going on in the kind of overall markets and kind of relate it back to comic books here. We're on the kind of weekend premiere of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And it's really interesting to think about it because I feel like, this is just my own personal feeling, but maybe you guys echo my feelings on this. But I feel like, the Marvel fans are cautiously optimistic about the film. We're hoping that it's going to be a return to form. We're hoping it's going to be good. We're hoping that, the Ryan Coogler and team are going to be able to kind of create something that is, a feeling of old, Marvel cinematic projects out there. But, there's not a lot of confidence either that movie is going to be able to sort of right the ship. Now, if we think about where we are with our kind of Silver Age index, and it's been my speculation that, based on kind of where we are in the economy, where the index is, where it's kind of falling back into trends, if the movie comes out and it's good and it can start to kind of win the favor of the crowd back onto its side, then we might start to see, us kind of bottom out as far as the values of Silver Age, Bronze Age, even Golden Age in some degrees. We're going to talk about Golden Age in a second. Start to kind of balance out. And we might be able to kind of turn the corner and set ourselves up for recovery in 2023. But, based on the market conditions, it's really hard to say if Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is going to do that. We just came off our elections. We just had sort of one of the biggest crashes in the stock markets for quite some time. One of the biggest drop-offs just a few days ago. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you guys are Disney holders out there. Full disclosure, I am a Disney holder. I have a fairly sizable position in Disney stock, which I also recently added to my portfolio as well. But it is quite interesting to see how big of a drop off that it had. And then you kind of have this sort of inflation report, the CPI, come out. We have a little bit of an uptick in the market and people are feeling kind of exuberant again. But, it feels like a temporary bounce. It really does feel like a temporary bounce. I don't necessarily foresee us officially kind of getting out of the woods just yet. And that's really kind of where, I look back to kind of comic books and think to ourselves, this idea of, the kind of the headline of the video, which is this idea of the easy money being made. I just don't think we're in a place where we're going to be able to kind of have, 3x returns on comic books anymore. When we think about a lot of the superhero comic books out there in the market, it's not so much that, even for myself, just anecdotally speaking, there's a lot of stuff I see out there I do want to buy, and I will definitely take advantage of deals when I see them. And there are deals out there, but the thing that is really interesting is like the sense of urgency to kind of capitalize on some of those deals. I mean, granted, if it's a deal that is really, really good, if it falls into my trend line or even below my trend line, I will 100% pull the trigger. But there are those deals where it's like it kind of comes around and you're like, yeah, this is so kind of close to where, I feel comfortable spending like that, spending that amount of money. But generally speaking, the sense of urgency is not really there because I think it is this truth, this sort of anecdotal truth that we know that we're in for a grind. Like, even if things turn the corner in 2023, it's still going to take some time for us to really start to feel some of those gains once again in the market. And it's a long road ahead of us. And so I think that that's, kind of really interesting just in terms of like what's going on with the market right now. And even outside of just kind of back issues and keys and stuff, it really does feel like, companies right now are pulling out all of the tricks. Every single trick they can pull out is being applied to generate whatever sort of, FOMO and whatever sort of income they can from consumers, whether it's the back issue world, whether it's current Marvel comic books. I feel like they're pulling out all of the tricks, just first appearance, new characters here, events, crossover. What do people like? Symbiotes? We're going to bring back the symbiotes, everything they can do to get a quick pop. They are definitely going to be pulling on those strings, even like, Whatnot Publishing, right? Like, I mean, how many Ninja Funk covers are we going to make in order to get, a kind of a hot book that week? I feel like everyone is pulling out the tricks. And, it's really a matter of like just being able to get people to kind of feel that sense of urgency because it's going to be that grind. It's going to be that grind. But again, I will go back to what I've said in prior videos where I feel like, the purchases I think people make today, right now, I think people are going to be really happy about those purchases in 6 months time, maybe even longer than that, but definitely a year from now. I think people are going to be really, really happy about those purchases. And there are a couple purchases I did kind of want to show you guys and talk about how some people I think will be happy about this. But this also kind of connects back to, this idea of the easy money being made. One of the things I always think is kind of interesting to talk about is that sort of idea of comic books being recession proof. And I think when people do talk about comics being recession proof, they often are, maybe being a little bit obfuscated with what specific comics they are discussing. And if you really, break it down, they're always sort of referring to like, well, Action Comics #1 has always gone up. And it's like, yeah, okay. Obviously, Action Comics #1 is always going to be, desirable in the market. But, for 99.9% of comic book collectors, that doesn't really apply. But I do think it is interesting to see that, in my personal opinion, I've never really felt that comic books are, quote unquote, recession proof. If we're really, really breaking it down, if someone had to liquidate their Golden Age collection today, do we really think that they would be able to get, record prices or get their money back, that they were spending in 2021? I personally highly doubt that. And I do think that it is interesting to talk about a few sort of sales that have happened recently for major Golden Age books and how these books aren't as recession proof as you may think. So the first couple sales here I wanted to talk about is, here we are on Go Collect. This is some of the chart busters. Usually with chart busters, they will list kind of, recent, just sort of big sales, not necessarily record sales, just recent big sales that have occurred. And there's a few sales specifically for a Superman #1 and a Batman #1 that happened on Golden Auctions that I think is really interesting to talk about. So let's talk about this Batman sale here at the 2.0 range. And one of the things I just kind of want to scroll down and show you guys is that, not all books go up in value. No book is immune to the market and the current conditions that we're in. I mean, even Golden Age books that have, only 136 universal copies on the census, Batman #1, of course, the first issue of the Batman series, first appearance of the Joker, you can actually see that this is a book that has gone down in value. So let's kind of look right here at the last sale for this Golden Auction. We had the 2.0 sell at $174,000. Decent looking 2.0, not bad overall. Small amount of dry glue on the spine, cover and center wraps reattached with moderate amount of tape. Still got the blue label. Maybe you guys are going to say like, oh, well, that's, it sold for less because of the fact that, it was reattached with tape. I mean, I guess if you want to make that argument, but let's just kind of stick to the point here, where you can see the last sale actually for this book now was a pedigree copy, the Promise Collection, that went for $240,000. So I'm willing to give this one a pass, but this one sold for, on November of 2021 for basically, we're talking $70,000 more than the current sale. But, let's say that the Promise Collection gives that one a little bit of a boost. Well, let's talk about the sale that happened here in September of 2021, where we had a 2.0 sell for $222,000. That is a $50,000 drop off for where we are with this current kind of Golden Auction. You might be saying, well, Swaggle-Haas, I mean, that's Golden Auction. I mean, nobody cares about Golden Auctions. To which I say, that is ridiculous, because if I have the opportunity to buy Batman #1, do I really care if I buy it off of Heritage Auctions or Golden Auctions? No, I don't. I'd rather buy it from the place that is going to give me the better value for my purchase. But even if we rewind the clock back to, not even these kind of current economic conditions we're in, you can see that this is a book that does, have the opportunity to always drop off. Here in November of 2018, this is a 2.0 that sold for $96,000. And then a year later, or, almost a year later, on June of 2019 on Comic Connect, this book went for $71,000. So we had a drop off from $96,000 to $71,000. And kind of the point where I'm going in showing you guys this specific sort of sale is just to kind of show you guys that, no book, again, is immune to this idea that, we might be in tough times and sort of an economic recession. The easy money has been made. No book is going to be an instantaneous, flip overnight, and be able to kind of carry us to the moon. I mean, I'm not saying that the person who bought that Batman 1 is necessarily holding the bag. No, I'm not saying that at all. I think that they're going to do very well for themselves, come in 5 years' time when they still have that book and the natural rate of inflation has continued to rise the value of the dollar, ipso facto raising the value of the comic book. I think that they're going to do well for themselves. But the point I'm trying to make is that, this idea of being able to buy a book and then 3 months later being able to flip it for 2x value is just, not going to happen anymore in this current kind of climate that we're living in. Similarly, I kind of want to just show you guys, just to nail the point home, another recent sale for a major Golden Age book, this Superman #1 here. This was another sale on Golden Auctions that happened at the end of October here on 10/30. The 3.0 sold for $420,000, which is definitely a lot of money. But when you compare it to a sale that happened on Golden Auctions in February of 2022, where this book went for $720,000. I mean, we're talking about basically half of the value. I mean, not quite half the value, 40% drop off in terms of its value from earlier this year to, basically a couple weeks ago. And that is what you call a massive drop off. Even Golden Age books are susceptible to having, pullbacks, to having corrections, and to being at the whim of, market conditions and, at the whim of whoever is watching, whoever is buying, whoever is ready to buy at that particular time. Maybe that $700,000 sale was just somebody who wanted it right then and there, or there were two people who just bid it up to that price point, and those two people now no longer want that book. That's what's really crazy about, the comic book market and these collectible markets in general, is that they're not perfect. You can't always apply logic to these markets, and that's why they're not always going to be predictable in terms of them being able to generate a consistent return. Now, the last little kind of sale I wanted to talk about here was this Punch Comics 12. I think other people have talked about this one. There was a 5.5 restored copy. Now, it was a C2 restored, which, generally speaking, a C2, this one says that it has color touch on it. So a C2 could be that it has quite a decent amount of color touch. Hard to say, but, obviously a super desirable book, pre-code horror book out there in the market regardless. But this 5.5 went for $18,600, which in my personal opinion, based on where the recent sales and the recent prices for this book have been, I would say that that is a pretty weak sale. And I would say that generally speaking, the last few sales for this particular book have been on the decline, where we started, earlier this year in June of 2022, we had a 5.5 sell for $71,000. Then we had a 2.0 sell for $23,400. And it's like, okay, so the 2.0 is at that $20,000 price point. Then we had a 2.0 restored, which this one had a, tear seals to cover, a C1, very easy to remove tear seals, especially at this grade level. You could basically get a blue label all the same. And that one sold for only $16,000. So, already kind of had a drop off. And then we went to a 1.5 grade at this blue label, dropped down to $14,400, which to me, I think is kind of a low sale as well. You would think that, generally speaking with these pre-code horror books, the lower grades eventually kind of overtake, the recent sales if in fact the book is trending upward. And then, this 5.5 that is restored at a C2 for $18,000 seems like a really good price that this person got for themselves. Generally speaking, it feels like they got a really, really good deal. And, that kind of brings it back to kind of what I was showing and kind of my point of talking about, sort of these golden age sales and these golden age books is that, it doesn't matter what book you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're in this comic book market. There are no guarantees for books continuing to go up in value. Everything can go to zero tomorrow, even golden age books. I mean, there really is no guarantee. And that idea of the easy money, I buy this book, I wait 6 months, I sell it for 2x. I mean, that idea is done. You really have to kind of have good fundamentals, think about the things that you're purchasing, have belief in these books in the long term, or at least, kind of the mid to long term. I mean, you at least got to be kind of on a 3-year timetable with a lot of the books that you purchase if you really want to try to maximize the returns that you might see in the comic book market. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. That was me just sort of doing a little bit of a market rambling, a little bit of a talk with you guys. I mean, I feel like the grind, has really, really begun. Like here we are, we're in the trenches now, we're in the end game now. And I do feel like this is sort of the grind in the comic book market. We've had a lot of turnover, in the comic book space. We've had a lot of people check out of the hobby. We have a lot of people kind of disillusioned with things like the MCU and collectibles in general. A lot of people feeling those, hard times. But again, like I've always been saying in a lot of these videos, I feel like now is a really, really good time. And I think that when you see those opportunities, when you see those deals, if you buy those books and you get them at good prices today, you're going to be thankful to yourself way down the line. Anyways, that's all for this video. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. I'll see you in the next one.